Good afternoon, Susan. This is especially for you. I haven't read it. I've been uploading and writing what was on the last video, so I'll just trust in God that I'll read this the way it's supposed to be read. It's called Prayers of Life, and these are Two Loves Only by Father MICHEL, QUOIST. Rest in peace. I love your writing. Please pray for me. We are made by love and for love. On earth we learn to love. At death we shall take our examination on love. If we have trained ourselves well enough, we shall go and live eternally in love. Now here below, every time that we love ourselves, selfishness, we fail a little in carrying out God's plan for us and for the world. There are but two loves, love of ourselves and love of God and others. To live is to choose between these two loves. No servant can be a slave to two masters, for either he will hate the first and love the second, or he will be devoted to the first and think nothing of the second. Matthew 4, verse 24. Only the man who loves his brother dwells in light. There is nothing to make him stumble. But one who hates his brother is in darkness. He walks in the dark and has no idea where he is going, because the darkness has made him blind. 1 John 2, 10 to 11. There are two loves only, Lord. Love of myself and love of you and of others. And each time that I love myself, it's a little less love for you and for others. It's draining away of love. It's a loss of love. For love is made to leave self and fly towards others. Each time it's diverted to myself, it withers, rots, and dies. Love of self, Lord, is a poison that I absorb each day. Love of self offers me a cigarette and gives none to my neighbour. Love of self chooses the best part and keeps the best place. Love of self indulges my senses and supplies them from the table of others. Love of self speaks about myself and makes me deaf to the words of others. Love of self chooses and forces that choice on a friend. Love of self puts on a false front, wants me to shine, overshadowing others. Love of self is self-pitying and overlooks the suffering of others. Love of self advertises my ideas and despises those of others. Love of self makes me virtuous. It calls me a good man. Love of self induces me to earn money, to spend it for my pleasure, to save it for my future. Love of self advises me to give to the poor in order to ease my conscience and live in peace. Love of self puts my slippers on and ensconces me in an easy chair. Love of self is satisfied with myself. It gently rocks me to sleep. What is more serious, Lord, is that love of self is a stolen love. It was destined for others. They needed it to live, to thrive, and I have diverted it. So the love of self creates human suffering. So the love of men for themselves creates human misery. All the miseries of men, all the sufferings of men. The suffering of the boy whose mother has slapped him without cause, and that of the man whose boss has reprimanded him in front of the other workers. The suffering of the ugly girl neglected at a dance, and that of the woman whose husband doesn't kiss her anymore. The suffering of the child left at home because he's a nuisance, and that of the grandfather made fun of because he's too old. The suffering of the worried man who hasn't been able to confide in anyone, and that of the troubled adolescents whose worries have been ridiculed. The suffering of the desperate man who jumps into the canal, and that of the criminal who's going to be executed. The suffering of the unemployed man who wants to work, and that of the worker who ruins his health for a ridiculous wage. The suffering of the father who has to pile his family into a single room next to an empty house, and that of the mother whose children are hungry while the remains of someone's party are thrown into the dustbin. Suffering of one who dies alone while his family in the adjoining room wait for his death drinking coffee. All sufferings, all injustices, bitternesses, humiliations, griefs, hates, despairs, all sufferings are an unappeased hunger, a hunger for love. So men have built slowly selfishness by selfishness, a disfigured world that crushes them. So men on earth spend their time feeding their self-love, while around them others with outstretched arms dies of hunger. They have squandered love. I have squandered your love, Lord. Tonight, I ask you to help me to love. Grant me, Lord, to spread true love in your world. Grant that by me and by your children it may penetrate a little into all circles, all societies, all economic and political systems, all laws, all contracts, all rulings. Grant that it may penetrate into offices, factories, apartment buildings, cinemas, dance halls. Grant that it may penetrate the hearts of men, and I may never forget that the battle for a better world is a battle of love, in the service of love. Help me to love, Lord, not to waste my powers of love, to love myself less, in order to love others more and more, but around me. No one should suffer or die because I have stolen the love they needed to live. Son, you will never succeed in putting enough love into the heart of man and into the world, for man and the world are hungry for an infinite love, and God alone can love with a boundless love. But if you want, son, I give you my life. Draw it within you. I give you my heart. I give it to my sons. Love with my heart, son, and all together you will feed the world and you will save it. Those were the truly wonderful words, inspired in and through and by him, Father MICHEL, QUOIST, French priest. I hope you're a saint, but I haven't heard that you've become one, but we'll pray. Yes, lovely, beautiful words. Rest in peace, Father MICHEL, QUOIST, and pray for more love on earth, especially in this COVID-19 lockdown business that we've been in since March, April. Don't let the churches be locked anymore. Thank you for listening. I do like his word. You'll hear more soon. I better go and get some light bulbs. It's getting dark.